Good evening, everyone. Everybody wave if you can hear me and see me. Perfect. I will just kind of wait a little bit as we continue to admit some people. Hopefully you can or have enjoyed the day today. It's a gorgeous day. Not too humid. Went for a walk this morning and it was 55 degrees. It reminded me a little bit of fall. Not quite ready for it yet. Just letting people in as we start. If you joined us last time, we'll talk a little bit about, or a lot of it about some of the topics we talked about. So hopefully it won't be too redundant, but I think it's important to get the message out. So you can do what my children do and just tune me out when there's things that you don't want to hear or you've heard before. We had great attendance last time. I think we had about 120 people, which is good. I think it helps get answers to families and helps clear up some confusion, especially in these very crazy times. Give it about 30 seconds or so. I want to be respectful of your time. If you hear of other families that can't make it this evening, we do record it and we do send it out to everybody. So if you're talking with somebody after we have this meeting about how wonderful and enthralling it is and they are disappointed that they missed it, you can let them know that we will email out the link for them to view at another time. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'll continue to admit people while we talk, but I am so grateful that you are here and participating with us during our second Q&A session. And hopefully, as I said earlier, it helps address some questions that you may be having. And I know there's so much unknown right now and so much information out there. So we'll do the best that we can to answer your questions. And we'll get the information to you as best we can. So for those of you that know me or don't know me, my name is Pete Curdy and I'm the principal here at Glacier Ridge. This is my 20th year as an educator and 14th as a principal and 8th at Glacier Ridge. So as I read those numbers, I am just astonished with the number of years that I've been in education, and I'm so grateful for it because I absolutely love it. I love working with kids. I love working with the families. I mean, I love working with the staff. If you know me at all, it is a very rewarding job because of the relationships that I get to have with all of those stakeholders. So that keeps me going because I think if I didn't enjoy it, I don't think I'd be able to sustain this pace. But I do love what I do, and I very much love education as well as the relationships. So hopefully that is evident to those people that do know me as a leader and an educator, and hopefully that becomes evident to those families that are new to Glacier Ridge. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to the entire Glacier Ridge community, because you have seen on social media, whether you are a parent or an educator, there's a lot of passion out there for back to school, and a lot of unknown. And I have just been overwhelmed with the amount of support that I've gotten from the school community, emails or just in passing. Thank you for what you're doing. I think it is amazing how the school community knows how difficult it has been for educators. And reciprocally, educators as parents have realized how difficult it has been for families during these times. So it has been a very refreshing newfound respect for both. And not to say that it wasn't there before, but I've just been overwhelmed. And it's often funny because my wife, many people know that will talk to my wife and know that I'm in education, and they say, "How's your husband doing? Is he okay?" As if somebody has passed away. So it is definitely a hard time, but I can't say how much support appreciation I have for the support that we receive from the Glacier community, and your flexibility. I mean, this is a time where flexibility is just key, whether you're staying at home, taking care of the kids and helping support their education, or whether you're working and not knowing what school is like, having to choose between remote and hybrid in a situation where you don't really know what you're choosing from. So your flexibility has been, and patience has been amazing. And I will ask that hopefully we can continue with that as we try and embark upon some brand new things that some we've done before because of the spring, some we haven't done before. And we'll get into that a little bit, but I can't extend a thank you enough to the Glacier community. I will talk a little bit about logistics for this evening. We're up to about 83 participants, so obviously it's a little bit difficult if we all talk, or even if we take turns, it becomes a little bit difficult. So Kelly Axelband, who I will introduce in a moment, we will go through an agenda of some topics, some frequently asked questions, and then some next steps for you. And then as we get towards the end of our talking points, if you have questions that aren't addressed, you can type them in the chat box, and then Kelly and I will kind of get through them. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Kelly Axelband. She is replacing the role of Sarah Wilcox, who has been transitioned over to Hopewell Elementary School. So Kelly Axelband is our admin intern, and she has already hit the ground running at Glacier Ridge. And I'm so proud of the work that she's done. She has been phenomenal and comes with a great background of education. So I'm going to have her talk about herself and introduce herself a little bit, and then she'll have some of the talking points of our agenda this evening.
Hi, I'm Kelly Axelband, and thanks for that little intro, Pete. A little bit about me. I came to Dublin City Schools in 2012. I began at Bailey Elementary teaching preschool, and then I transitioned over to Wyandotte Elementary, where I spent the last 3 years as an intervention specialist. I received my undergrad from Ohio State in special education and my master's from Miami University in administration. I'm so excited that I was selected to be the admin intern at Glacier Ridge, and it's been such a welcoming community already, and the parents and staff and Pete and everybody has been so great. So I can't say thank you enough to all of you guys for the support. I reside in Dublin with my family. I absolutely love living here, and I'm happy to be part of the community. And I will be on tonight helping to answer questions and to kind of go through our agenda alongside Pete. That being said, we want to introduce Hillary Brooks, the co-vice president of our PTO. If she's here, I don't know if she wants to.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks to you and Pete. So my name is Hillary Brooks, and this year I am serving as the co-vice president of our PTO alongside Ellie Moore, who you'll get to meet during the next Q&A session. So I hope that with the last Q&A, you were able to meet our PTO president, Melissa Bogner, who's also on tonight. And as such, you'll likely hear some of the same information that we have to share. So first and foremost, as a PTO, our mission is to align our resources, which are both financial and our parent resources, and support our staff and students to really enrich the learning experience. So we are hard at work on creative ideas for this coming year. We look forward to the feedback that we hope our parents and staff will be able to provide. And just a few quick items as we've been able to kick off some of the back to school fun. So today was our school supply sale, or I should say the pickup, and that was very successful. Thank you all for participating and your patience, and especially to our chairs, Michelle Holden and Sarah Peterson, for all their work on that. Next is Spirit Wear. You can showcase your GRE pride, and that'll be on sale through the end of August. Next is the PTO weekly emails have resumed. You should have received the first one on Monday. If you did not, please reach out to Glacier Ridge PTO at Gmail, and we'll make sure to help you. And then lastly, we hope that you'll consider liking the Glacier Ridge Elementary PTO Facebook page. We post a lot of reminders, events, photos, and great information to share with our parents. So with that, welcome to our new families and welcome back to our returning families. And we look forward to getting to see and know all of you. So thank you, Pete and Kelly.
Thanks, Hillary. I have to say a huge thank you to you and the board. And you're right, Michelle and Sarah. Today was a well-oiled machine. Just for the quick glimpse that I was able to go outside, and many of you on this call may have swung by and picked up your school supplies, which really is designed as a service and not a moneymaker. It's really a convenience, and if you've ever gone school shopping with your children, sometimes it's an enjoyable experience and sometimes it is tedious. So it really is a service. But I have to say that today was phenomenal. As well as Katie and Darren, who were in as a Spirit Wear, setting up the Spirit Wear items and getting them prepped. So in a nutshell, we are so fortunate to have a phenomenal PTO under the leadership of the board, and as well as all the committee chairs and just all volunteers. Every person does their part, but as Hillary said, it is a collaborative relationship and ultimately designed to support the students, and everything trickles down. So we support the families and the staff, all for the benefit of the students. So we're fortunate to have a supportive PTO where we really align our missions of support. So, and you'll notice that in the communication about how we spend the money that we receive or fundraise, and such a large portion of it goes directly to kids and those stakeholders. I also want to say welcome to a lot of the new Glacier Ridge families. I mentioned last time that it's a little bit disheartening to know that we weren't able to do a transition for all those redistricted students or new students moving into our attendance area. Usually we have welcome nights and tours and student ambassadors, and a lot of that has just been difficult because of COVID, obviously, and many of the activities have been either done a different way, or canceled altogether. So I do want to say welcome to those people. You are not forgotten, and certainly if you need anything, you're welcome to email me, you're welcome to call the office, or you're welcome to reach out to the PTO or your neighbors. We all have some information for you that we're happy to help support you with. I will also say on our website, we try to make that as user-friendly and as much of a resource as possible. We did just change over the summer to a new format, so it looks a little bit differently. So it may have some things in different spots, or some things missing, or hopefully the links aren't incorrect. But there is a frequently asked questions document on our website, and it's right on the front. And that's really applicable to everybody. I will say it's not quite applicable to the COVID situation. So many of the things on there are typically asked questions during a normal school year, but not this year since it's not typical. So it'll help a little bit, but there's some things that are not applicable. The other thing on there, which really is applicable because it was done over the summer, is a new family presentation and videos on the website. So usually we do a tour, but there are videos of myself giving a tour, and there's frequently asked questions on there with information that's applicable. So new families, welcome. I hope you find this to be a kind and welcoming community despite our pandemic situation that we're in, but we're very fortunate to have you and welcome you tremendously. Also this evening, we're going to be talking a little bit about two groups. As I mentioned earlier, families could choose either the hybrid or the remote learning academy. So we want to make this applicable to everybody, and we understand that some of the things will be and some won't be. But we're really addressing both of those questions this evening. So don't feel like you can or cannot ask one. It's really for both. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kelly and kind of talk through the DCS responsible restart plan, which has been communicated significantly through the district, and it's on the district website, and just give a little bit of a background of how that came about and what it really is.
Sure. So hopefully this is information that you guys have already heard, but we wanted to make sure to include it as it is very important as we think about restarting pretty soon here. Staff has already been back at work hard, but we're excited to get the kiddos and you guys back too. So the Dublin City Schools Responsible Restart Plan has been worked on since June. There was involvement of administrators, staff, parents, other community stakeholders, and even some healthcare professionals from Franklin County. There have been many revisions of this plan. So the most current one is on the Dublin City Schools website. So you can refer there to see the entire plan. The big picture plan, it takes so much time to develop, and every little procedure for implementation is something new. So every day when we go into work, we really think we have it figured out, and then we get another curveball. So we're really just trying to take it slow and steady and try to be consistent and try to get the plan really rolled out continuously in a good way with fidelity. At the building level, as we begin to implement that plan, and we have with our staff this week, we did use the survey data from the spring from the GRE parents to really set some building goals around restarting this fall. So we really want to focus on improving the learning experience for the students online, especially in these first 2 weeks back, since that's how all students will be starting. We want to make sure to include a nice balance based on your feedback of synchronous and asynchronous learning. So synchronous learning are those live video meets with their teachers, and then the asynchronous learning will be activities posted on Google Classroom that your child can complete on whatever time frame works for them. So it's just not really scheduled as much. We do want teachers to communicate very consistent and clear schedules with families this fall. They did the best they could in the spring, but the expectation for that is a little bit higher, which those schedules will be communicated to families tomorrow at your Meet the Teacher virtual meetings. So that will be something. And we really want to focus on building student connections and classroom community in this new virtual world. So if we can set that nice foundation before students even walk through the doors, that will just be a really positive thing for the classroom culture in these trying times. We also want teachers to develop consistent family communication plans so that you know how, when, where to get teacher communication. That was a big part of the feedback we received in the spring as well. And we know that with the craziness of these schedules and just school being different, communication is key for success of all students. So again, the teacher will communicate more specifically about his or her plan tomorrow at their virtual Meet the Teacher.
Thanks, Kelly. I will tell you that the staff have been in this week and they've been working extremely hard. And if you know the Glacier staff, they're really dedicated and want to do a phenomenal job. We are fortunate to have a wonderful curriculum department and technology department who have really provided a lot of professional development modules for staff this week. So they spent some days with Kelly and I going through some information and some support. And they've had significant days with modules and live synchronous learning, as well as asynchronous, which is the pre-recorded meets or activities for them to kind of go through. So we're so fortunate to have such great support in Dublin and resources at our disposal. With that said, I will tell you that we will absolutely build upon what we did in the spring. We flipped so quickly, and we did it in over a weekend and had very little planning, and considering we did a great job. So my promise to you is we will be better at a lot of things. But I will say that with the caveat is we're still learning. We're still inventing the wheel a little bit. We're ultimately not online teachers. We are classroom teachers that are forced to teach remotely or hybrid. And so although we will be better, we won't be perfect. So thank you so much for that grace. And with that, we also ask for your feedback, because as we want to get better, we can't do that without your feedback as well. So there'll be opportunities for you to give feedback. And you don't have to wait for those. If you have feedback for us, please let us know. But my words to you on that is we'll be better, but much like anything, we won't be perfect. But the staff are just so dedicated, and they are extremely, honestly, they are anxious because they want to be significantly better than they were in the spring. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of the timeline of dates, and you may have seen that there was a letter that went out today, and I'm really trying to chunk the information for you because if you're anything like me, it is still very confusing, whether you're remote or especially hybrid, where there are multiple phases in terms of coming back into the building. So it's going to start off pretty easy, and then we're going to get a little more complicated, but you'll continue to receive information from us via email as well. So the first thing was you should have received your child's classroom teacher assignment via email today. So that did go to the primary parent. That is a little bit on the back side of the IT and logistical technological side. Much like myself, my wife got the assignments because she's the primary parent and I did not. So we know that is a little bit of a difficulty, but at least one of the student's parents should have received the teacher assignment. You also should have received just, or prior to this, your child's Gmail account and password, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment as well. And then we just emailed out the second letter or information letter from the school about those next steps. So that is up to this point. The next step is tomorrow, where there will be the live Meet the Teacher event. And that's the first thing where we're doing virtually and doing something in a different way. So it will be live. So if you're paying attention and taking notes, that will be synchronous, where you'll have live interaction with you and your child, as well as the teacher on the other end. So there was a schedule sent out with those times, and they were set already school-wide, really district-wide primarily. And then your child's teacher will send out that link where you click on it. If you can't attend during that time, don't worry, we do record it, so that way you'll be able to see it and get that information at your convenience, and we know that that's not ideal. So we apologize for that, but you'll at least be able to see that information and can watch it with your child if you can't make it during that scheduled time. Logistically, your teacher will tell you how to log into that information. I think the easiest way is definitely make sure that you have your child's student email address. I think many staff are emailing it both to the families as well as the students. So if you look back at your email with your child's Google email and password, practice logging in sometime before the meet and see if there's an email from there. But your child's teacher should really have communicated how to have access to that link. If you can't find it or have not received one, call the office and we'll help you. The next step from there is really a big one, is on August 24th. So that gets us through this week and starts us on Monday with remote learning. And that is where both the Remote Learning Academy and the hybrid students are pretty much doing the same thing at the same time, regardless of which choice you had. So that 2-week window from the 24th through the 4th is remote learning for all students. And it really is to focus on building relationships, getting to know students as people as well as learners. And that's for that 2 weeks. And so it may not quite be a routine for them yet. So during that time, I will say, although Kelly mentioned earlier that we're really trying to have consistent schedules, those schedules might be a little bit different because the focus isn't necessarily let's jump right into math and science and social studies and reading. It does look a little bit different. We're meeting with smaller groups, really getting to know the kids. Sometimes there will be full class. But it's not going to be the traditional schedule that you may have seen on the Responsible Restart plan yet. So we know that it might be a little bit tricky for those first 2 weeks, but there is absolutely a purpose of building a connection during those 2 weeks. The next transition won't happen until the 8th, but prior to that, that's our third principal question and answer session. We purposefully schedule that the week before it changes to the orientation schedule on the 8th. That way we'll have that next email that goes out with information as well as the question and answer session. So we can walk you through what that looks like because we realize it does look a little bit, or it is a little bit confusing. So on September 8th, there is a 2-week orientation for hybrid students. Remote learning students, they will continue with remote learning and then they will get into the rhythm of definitely the subject areas and it will be a routine schedule. So the remote learning will start next week and then just continue and transition to more and more content as it goes on. The hybrid students at the end of the 2 weeks will transition to orientation. During orientation, it will be just a quarter of the teacher's class. And the reason we're doing that is so that way we can get students in a smaller chunk, really make sure that we can physically distance, get them practicing coming into a building. We recognize that there's going to be a lot of anxiety and possibly a lot of fear. And also, full disclosure, gives us a little bit of practice on making sure that we have routines in place. So we'll be practicing physical safety and health safety routines that we've been implementing with our local or with the health department and health department at Dublin as well. So it'll be just a quarter of that time. And Kelly's going to really dig into that a little bit, but that's the purpose of orientation. As well as to get to know students a little bit. So she's going to talk through that and kind of break down the tentative schedule and tentative information.
Yeah, so this is where it gets a little bit more tricky, so just bear with us. But again, the first 2 weeks will be remote for everyone, and then beginning on September 8th, that's the Tuesday after Labor Day, hybrid students will begin coming in the buildings in the orientation days. So we kind of are thinking about those similar to phase-in days, where the alphabet is broken down even smaller than the hybrid days. So we're bringing in a quarter or 25% of our students at a time per class. So the times for that are the same as the regular hybrid times will be. So that's 8:30 to 11:30 for the AM session and 1 to 4 for the PM session. And these, again, are all based on last name. So your child will report every other day for half a day during the orientation days. So that's September 8th to September 21st. The orientation days, your child will report every other day for half a day. An example of that would be, so my last name is Axelband. It starts with A. So I would report Tuesday in the AM, and then I would not report again until Thursday in the AM. And then my next report date would not be until Monday in the AM. So really it's broken down so that a very few amount of kids are coming at each time to ensure that we can properly teach those safety protocols, build those connections amongst students, and even begin to do some of those deeper assessments that will give us some nice baseline data. The kindergarten orientation, they don't really do orientation days, they do their hybrid schedule. Since Dublin City Schools kindergarten is already only a half a day, those students will start on September 8th with what their hybrid schedule would be, which also goes by last name, and it's alternating depending on the last name. So kinder's already broken down A to D, E to K, L to R, and S to Z. So there will be more specific kindergarten information. I think it came out yesterday, actually, or it will be coming, because kinder is just such a different scenario because it is half day already. But your child, if you are the parent of a kindergartner, will start the hybrid kinder schedule on September 8th. And that more dates and specific things will be coming, and we will continue to push those out so that you guys are very informed about when your child needs to be where.
Thanks, Kelly. If you have questions about it, I know that as even an administrator, we had to hear it multiple times in order to process it. So we'll continue to get that information out. And essentially, if you think my child's class, whether if I'm hybrid, divided into quarters, and during the quarters are for the orientation schedule, and then halves for the hybrid schedule, which will be the last step after orientation. We are rounding third, going to home with our agenda, and there are already some questions in there. So I'm going to address some frequently asked questions that we have received in the office or via email, and then I'll get to the questions that people type in there, and Kelly and I will address those. The first is, what does school look like on the first day, and when do they report? I mentioned that teachers are creating schedules, but I also mentioned that the schedules are a little bit different for these first 2 weeks as they make connections and build a classroom community. So your teacher will be sharing the tentative schedule with you, but ultimately they will communicate the chunks of information that you need for at least those couple of days. For example, they may have you start the day at 9 o'clock when school typically starts, with a whole class Google Meet, and the teacher will welcome everybody and introduce themselves and do a quick activity. And then they may transition from there to either small groups and get to know students in a smaller setting. And they may also say, okay, now get onto your Google Classroom. Here is how you do that, and show them how to do that during the Google Meet, and then show them the activities that they do asynchronously. So it is not a typical schedule, and it's not a typical day. So please don't expect them to be on the computer all day as they would be at school all day during the first day of school. So it may look and feel definitely different to you and definitely different to the students, but the teacher will communicate that schedule and then when and where they should report for the first day of school. If we're getting close to Monday and you don't have that information, feel free to reach out to your teacher and just say, when is my child supposed to log on? Or I just want to make sure I know how to get them to log on. You reach out to them. However, at Meet the Teacher, they'll go over a lot of that information with you. Another question is, what does asynchronous and synchronous learning look like? And we talked a little bit about that. I will tell you that synchronous learning isn't necessarily better. I think there's a misnomer out there. The more my child can be on a computer with a live teacher, that is better. But I will tell you from personal experience with my own children, they get screen burnout. And imagine just listening to me for 35 minutes and you tune out in a synchronous meeting. Same thing with students. So there definitely needs to be chunks of time and a variation of activities that are both synchronous and asynchronous. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, my child's not on synchronous learning all day, then they must not be learning. So the teacher's really going to use that synchronous time strategically. Sometimes the whole class does need to get together so the teacher can give out good information. Sometimes the teacher may use a pre-recorded video and flip it out to students to watch, and then synchronous with small groups. So there will be some variation in both the synchronous and asynchronous activities, and whether it's whole group or small group or even individually. But I will tell you, as I said, synchronous is not necessarily more. You may have found that out as a parent too, when there's a lot of synchronous meets, and if you're working or busy or have a lot to do, it's hard to coordinate exactly. My child has a scheduled Google Meet with my teacher at 10 o'clock and again at 11 and again at 1. I mean, that's a lot to manage in terms of schedule for a family. How to join the Google Meet, and what if I can't attend, or meet the teacher, I should say. How to attend that? You should have received a link today from your child's teacher where to access that the Meet the Teacher event for tomorrow. If you haven't, you can reach out to your child's teacher, but that link should lead you to a live Google Meet. And it won't be active until the assigned time, mostly because we don't want students to get on there ahead of time and get on there without the classroom teacher. So I will say that sometimes I think it's easier to access that with your child's student Gmail account because there's less restrictions that way. So that's why I mentioned earlier, see if you can find that email with your child's Google email and password. I don't know Google very well. What do I need to know? In the newsletter this Friday, we're going to send out, it's pretty lengthy, a 20-minute parent video of everything you need to know about Google Classroom, Google Mail, and it's designed specifically for families. It will walk you through all of the steps on how to navigate Google Classroom, how to access your child's student email account. So all the things that will help you. So if you can endure me talking for 40 minutes, you might be able to endure 20 minutes of the Google Classroom. But I will tell you, it is very helpful because you'll stumble along those questions as you're trying to navigate and support your child's learning. I'm going to go through the questions a little bit, and Kelly, feel free to add any or jump in if you want to answer any as well. The first one actually is from Melissa. If anybody has any PTO questions, I'm sure Hillary and Melissa are able to answer those questions as well. The first question is, can you let us know how COG classes will be held during the hybrid and remote sessions? COG for both hybrid and remote will be taught asynchronously. So what that means is it won't be, for the hybrid students, it won't be a pull-out session in school. It will be taught with asynchronous lessons, and then sometimes there will be synchronous meets afterwards. So I should say COG will be taught remotely, not necessarily asynchronously. So it will be in the opposite of the in-person. And then if you are remote, the GIS will coordinate with the classroom teacher and schedule those meetings with a student. So that's how COG will work. 5-6 math, for those 5-6 math students, it will be taught for a hybrid in session at school. Are you allowed to start asynchronous learning at 6? I assume it's 6 in the morning. And when will the teacher post work? That's a great question. You know, we have a typical school day, and we're trying to live by that school day, so that way there's more structure, and we're trying to follow a structure. But I acknowledge that families are working, and sometimes the only time you can work is or have the child learn is after you're done working or when a device is available. So there will be some flexibility. I'll tell you that there is not a set time when teachers need to post work, mostly because we want staff to respond to the needs of the family. So if you feel like the work needs to be posted earlier, or if you need the work to accommodate your schedule, let me know. But we're trying to allow some flexibility when the work is posted and when it's completed. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, my guess is you'll have the work already for the asynchronous learning. Or you could do the previous day's asynchronous learning that morning. When remote learning students returns for the second term, how are they accommodated, especially teacher assignment of the other school? So what I think that question is asking is what's going to happen if the remote students return into hybrid, and which teacher will they go to, and vice versa if hybrid students want to switch to remote. The process will be the same as we did in this fall process, when what we did was we took all of the remote learning applications, counted how many there were at a school building, and then if there were enough for a class, we chose one classroom teacher to teach those remote learning students. Sometimes there weren't enough to pull an entire second teacher to teach those remote learning students in that grade. And in that case, those students went and were added to a class at another school's remote learning teacher. So not all remote learning teacher students from Glacier are taught by a remote learning teacher from Glacier, but they're all taught by a Dublin City School teacher at the elementary school level. So the same thing will happen. What that means, though, is it's not necessarily guaranteed that the teacher will be the same. We're hoping that there can be as much consistency as possible, but it really depends on how many kids flip from one to the other. Have Care Docs emails and health forms already gone out? The answer to that is yes. The second question is if we can't find them or need them again, they may have gone to spam. I would say call the school and we'll connect you to the clinic, and the clinic aide can reshare those Care Docs health forms for you. Again, I think that went to the primary parents' email as well. Do you recommend buying particular types of masks when hybrid students come back into school? There is not a district recommended mask that I know of at this time. It does just need to be a face covering mask versus a face shield. And if there are health concerns, you can contact the clinic and we'll work through those procedures. We did not take our kindergarten daughter to the hearing and vision screenings. Is that okay to wait until things return to normal? Yeah, I think that question is returning to the assessment screenings that we did in the summer. Those were not hearing and vision, so sorry for that miscommunication. They were actually academic screenings, just to find out what information your children knew already about alphabet and numeracy. I will say we are scheduling appointments to come into the building, but if you're not comfortable having your child come into the building, or if there are health concerns, we will reach out to you and arrange something to do testing remotely. What do hybrid students do during orientation on their days off? Will they have remote learning lessons, or will they have those days off? Great question. If you ask your children, they'll say, "Oh, those days are off. I don't have learning." Much like they would often say, "I don't have homework," which isn't always true because they always would have reading. They will have asynchronous activities on those days that they are off. So that's mostly for the orientation days, because they'll be attending every other day. So those days off, or clearly what we're calling days off, will have asynchronous learning. And the same thing will happen once we're hybrid. When the students are in half a day and then off half a day, they'll have asynchronous learning on that off half of a day. Remote Learning Academy kids, will they be able to work with laptops only, or will they need setup for printers, etc. for kids? We're really trying to not require printers as much as possible, because I know everybody's printer situation is different. So hopefully not. And if you don't have a printer, or there's an activity that requires a printer, we've really had the discussion with our staff of try to offer it a different way. And you have the flexibility to do it a different way. It's about the learning. It's not about the task completion. So if you say that there needs to be, or you don't have a printer and the teacher says it needs to be printed, and if my own children will say, Dad, you need to go buy a printer right now because I need to print this, absolutely not. Do it another way or reach out to the classroom teacher, but you should not need a printer for a variety of activities. When will all students with an IEP be supplied with their IS? The ISs are reaching out to their caseloads of students, and they will also talk about how the service minutes will be accommodated for as well. So they're in the process of doing that, not as we speak, but in these next couple days. Is there any PPE that teachers need, parents, and may be able to donate? That's a great question. Right now, the district has supplied teachers with masks. Teachers are required to supply their own masks, much like students, but we did supply some materials for staff, like face shields, in addition to masks for everybody. So, you know, I will wait for that. Ultimately, if there is a need, we'll reach out to families. But as of right now, I don't think there is. But you know, we haven't even started with school with kids coming back in yet. I know that we received the CARES Act money, and a lot of that money went towards computers because that was a definite need as well. But I think we'll reach out to the community should things need to be donated. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. In the return to school survey, the proof of residence is shown in red. We delivered the papers a long time ago. Is there a problem with data or just normal processing delays? My daughter is new in kindergarten, attending kindergarten. I would say to that family, reach out to the school and we can address that question more specifically for you. So we'll be able to help you with that one specifically. When we hopefully go hybrid, I agree. On the days kids don't report during orientation phase, will they have learning assignments? Yep, we talked about that one a little bit. Thank you. I heard some of the parents that school provides iPads to kids who opted for remote. Is that true? Here's what I'll tell you. We don't provide iPads. We do have Chromebooks that can be available. And many families around the district have stated learning is just so hard with the devices that we have at home. I will tell you there's not an unlimited amount of devices, and I also will tell you that we're not going to have devices go home and back to school frequently. The problem that causes is now we'll have kids both at home and at school, and because even though we're using the CARES Act money, we don't have a ton. We're not quite a district of 1-to-1 yet, and laptops or Chromebooks are rolling down from the 8th graders and 9th and 12th graders that have left last year. So we are getting more, but I will tell you there's not an infinite amount. So with that said, if the learning is significantly difficult for you at home, you have multiple kids that are sharing a device, or you're using an iPad that just makes it tricky to manage the Google Classroom, reach out to us. We are taking those families' names and letting them know the process for picking them up. But the caveat is we don't have, we do have a limited amount. So if you need help navigating whether you think your child would benefit from one or need one, I can help you gauge that need. Is the same teacher handling remote hybrid students in one class, or the staff has been added to meet the surge? Yes, staff have not been added. We basically have taken those Remote Learning Academy students, and when there are enough of them, we also take a Dublin teacher to teach those students, which is why there are Dublin teachers all over the district teaching remote and sometimes across schools because of it. We enrolled my child in Glacier Ridge almost in the last minute. We did not order school supplies. Yep, school supplies are tricky. Thanks again to the PTO. The school supply list is on the website. I would caution you first, though, before you stress out and go buy all those things on the list. Those were created before we knew what this fall school was going to look like. So I would say reach out to your classroom teacher and say, which are the school supplies that are most needed? And then maybe go get those. Again, if you're like the Curdy kids, they would say, Dad, I absolutely need this green binder that Mrs. So-and-so said that I need because I'm going to stress out if I don't have it. That's why reaching out to the classroom teacher to know exactly what school supplies. So it'll save you some stress, save you some time, but maybe access the school supply list that's on our website first. Will the kids doing full remote learning be getting Chromebooks? Yep, talked about that one. Yep, thank you, Michelle posted the link to the school supply list. How can remote 5th grade students attend 5th, 6th grade math? Yep, there was a process for that with multiple data points, and we can talk you through that if your child is not part of that. But we work with 4th grade teachers, look at data, and then work with our gifted department, Marge Mulcahy, to determine that process. I'm worried about children being assigned to a different teacher. Yep, so I know that there might be some discomfort about Remote Learning Academy students being taught by a different Dublin teacher. And I think a lot of that comes from the comfort. You know us, you know the expectations of Glacier Ridge, and you know what Glacier Ridge teachers do. There's just a level of comfort with that. I will tell you, my own children attend Pinny. And there are staff here that have kids that attend other schools as well. So the first thing I'll tell you is, even with that, we get some concerns sometimes when children get a teacher that they don't know also. Really the first step that I recommend with families is reach out to that building principal and maybe that classroom teacher and really discuss what your fears are, what your needs are, talking about the student's needs and having the principal involved, having the teacher involved, really set the stage for here's what my expectations are as a parent, here's what my child's needs are, and let's develop a plan for how we can collaboratively meet those needs. So that's really what I recommend to families, whether it's with a teacher out of Glacier Ridge or even with a family that is within Glacier Ridge that has some concerns. That really is all of the questions, and I appreciate your time. I know there's a lot of concern, a lot of questions, so if there are more things that come up, feel free to reach out and call the office. Feel free to email us. I will say, full disclosure, we are swamped with emails. So if you need a timely answer, maybe call the office. But even with that, they are swamped with phone calls too. But our priority is to make sure that you feel comfortable, especially during this very uncertain and different time. But we'll get you your answers, but emailing me might not be the fastest way, but I encourage you to call the office. Anything that anybody else would want to add, Melissa, Hillary, or Kelly, before we end this evening? I said it all. Again, thank you, everybody. I want to close just with I love our job, my job. The staff is excited. Even though things are different, they are very much excited about learning and teaching in whatever capacity that may be for all the students. So again, thank you. Reach out if you have questions, and I appreciate your time. Take care.